Jason again. I want to share another neat old call that I got in the mail for a tune-up and a fix this week. It's an old ebony call, and probably made in the 80s or 90s by my dad. I can tell by the shape that it's my dad's call and on the stopper. But he also, if you can see, has a little bit of an issue here. Right there is a nice little crack. And it runs all the way down. Let's see if we can follow that, all the way down into about there. So the issue is air is escaping and affecting the sound of the call. One of the reasons that a crack like this will happen is if you're like me in the duck blind, you're putting it together and you're making sure it's tight all day. And at the end of the day, as you know, wood will expand and contract when it gets wet and then dries. So imagine you're in a wet duck blind all day. You've been jamming it together. You put this in your bag as is, and it goes into your warm truck and then your warm car, and then it will contract. And a lot of times these things will almost get stuck together, if you will. Now, the reason I know that's the case, because one of the tricks, I looked on the end of the stopper here, and you can see where the gentleman actually tried to take a screwdriver to knock it loose and maybe some other instrument. So a tip on that is you can actually, when the call's in there jammed, rock it the opposite direction of the flat platform. So if you look down the end of the barrel, find which direction it is and try to toggle it back and forth. And 9 times out of 10, I can get a call loose that way. If it's really jammed and you need to give it some additional force, I would take something like a cedar dowel and you could, tap that down with a hammer or whatever. But the reason I would use cedar is because cedar is softer than the actual wood. So if you're going to do damage to anything, you're going to do damage to the cedar before you actually do damage to that stopper. So the other thing that you'll notice that he ended up inadvertently doing is doing some damage to the reed platform surface. Fortunately, I've tuned this call up and it sounds fine. But you can see where he's got that little punch that he tried to punch it out with, kind of created a little lip there on the reed platform, which is another thing that you want to try to avoid. So that's it. What I'm going to try to do today is to fix that crack, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to try to do that so we can get this call working for him for duck season, which already started this last weekend. The other thing that I would recommend, other than taking our calls apart at the end of the day, is something that I covered in a previous video, which is to oil your call on a regular basis. We use linseed oil and a mixture of 10% turpentine so it'll dry. Slather it on there and then wipe it off about 30 minutes later. You don't want the linseed oil to get caked up here, so you definitely dry that surface off well. But dry all your surfaces off well. And let's see what we can do to get this fixed. All right, let's see if we can put this thing back together. So what I have here is some 2-ton epoxy. And I'm going to mix that up real well. And one of the things that you can do, and I wish I had some more ideal sawdust hanging around so it doesn't look totally clear when you're done, is to mix in some sawdust with that last mixture. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do there. Get that all mixed up real good. And then I'm going to take a little sawdust that I stole from my bandsaw, and I'm just going to mix that in just to give it a little color. It's going to look like a striped call when I'm done. It's more than enough. Save a little bit. I've got a little something I'm going to show you at the end too. So that'll just darken it up a little bit. Probably used a little too much sawdust. So we'll mix that up. And that way you can kind of see it too. Now, one of the things I didn't show you before we start the operation procedure is so what I've done is I've taken some tape, electrical tape on the inside and wrapped it around so it's not going to come out, crack on the end or inside hopefully either. If it does a little bit, it's not a big deal, but I'm hoping to kind of keep it. So you can see when I put some pressure on it, that crack will come back together. So what I want to do is I've actually got it on my lathe here just because it creates a little bit of an expansion scenario that's good, so I can get that stuff to go in there. I'm just gonna jam that in as much as I can. Kind of tough. And you know, you gotta get your hands dirty eventually. So you gotta, I try to push it in as much as I can with my hand too. Get that glue down in there as much as possible. Just get a little more in there. Pushing it down, push that glue down as much as possible. So when you squeeze it, you can see that it's going to squeeze back out and hopefully jam that together. Let's see if we can just one more push. All right, so I'm going to wipe that off. So what I ended up doing was I ended up putting it in one of these clamps, quick grips by Irwin, and holding that overnight. So it looks like the glue is in pretty good shape. Squeezed back out the crack. Let's take this tape off and see what we find out. Yep, squeezed out there, so that's good. I feel a little bit of a lump in there I'll have to get out. Anyway, with a reamer or something. But anyway, I'm going to put it on the lathe and turn it out and polish that nice and clear. That's pretty cool. Hardly see the crack now. Take a look at that. See, you can't. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. Kind of see it there. But yeah, I think that's gonna work. I didn't show you this portion, but I ended up messing with the cracks on this lip end. I did some. It had spiral cracks on all sides. So I filled those cracks and set them overnight to seal up. And it's not perfect, but at least air's not escaping anywhere on the call. I usually start with like a 180 grit, and move to like a 220 and a 360. This is actually 400. This is that last bit of fine stuff. think he'll be happy with that. A little touch of Vaseline. So what's cool about this is final product is I can't even find the crack we fixed. I probably can if I'm careful, but oop, I think I felt it. No, that was the reed. Yeah, there it is, maybe. But anyway, it's pretty hidden, which is awesome for him. So that's the story. Have a good one.